Good morning, everyone. It's 8 o'clock on January 7th, and we'll call the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors to order. And our first thing, we're going to have a invocation by Pastor John Lessek from Bethel Lutheran Church in Hudson. Everybody stand, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year, and thanks for your service. Thanks for all that you do. It's a privilege to be able to pray for you and pray with you. Let's pray. Gracious God, we thank you for the gift of this new day, this new year, and this new decade. God, lead us all to be good stewards with all that's been entrusted to us, especially with the new possibilities and the new opportunities of 2020. But we thank you specifically today for these leaders and the gifts and talents and abilities that you've given them. We thank you for their willingness to serve, to work for the common good of others, and to see the big picture of life in our community. And as they meet today, continue to give them wisdom and discernment in their work. Help them to carry a spirit of unity and teamwork for serving all people. And Lord, sustain them in their commitment to the truth, to being men and women of character, of virtue and integrity. And may they truly be examples and role models as our elected officials. God, as you bless them, and as you've blessed our community, bring blessings to others through their time here today. These things we ask, these things we pray, these things we lift again to you on this day, Lord. And let all the people together say, Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Would everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Cindy, roll call ready?
Yep.
Dan Hansen. Okay.
I don't think you heard you, much less the rest of the world.
Okay, well, we have a quorum, so thank you, everyone. And we're going to move into our public comment sector. And today we have quite a few people signed up, so we're going to limit it to 2 minutes today instead of 3. And we'll be running the timer at that today. And I'm just going to take them in the order they came in. So the first one we have is Mary Jane Bridget.
Good morning. My name is Mary Jane Bridge, and I live in New Richmond, but was the third generation of my family born and raised in Hudson, with a nephew and great nieces coming along behind my brother and myself. I graduated from Hudson High School in 1960. I'm here to speak in favor of the Fair Maps referendum for free and fair elections. As a kid, I was raised to play fair no matter the game or the situation, and I still believe in that. To have a government that is fair to all people, it takes many points of view, lots of discussion and compromise, and clear and fair thinking. In my mind, that begins with elections being open to all eligible voters, not set up so that one vote or one group of voters carries more weight than any other single or group of votes. I'm hoping that St. Croix County can help lead Wisconsin in enacting fair voting, and in turn the state of Wisconsin can help to lead the nation in fair elections. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you. Elizabeth Wood.
Good morning. I am a resident of St. Croix County, and I am here as a member of the League of Women Voters. As most of you know, the League of Women Voters is celebrating 100 years of being in existence this year. It's dedicated to ensuring that all of our elections remain free, fair, and accessible. The next round of redistricting must be fair. We all must commit to ensuring a fair, equitable democracy for all of our citizens. The future of our representative democracy depends on fair maps. Gerrymandering runs counter to equal voting rights for all eligible voters. Voting is a fundamental right, and all eligible voters should have equal opportunity to exercise that right and to have their vote count equally. I am here in support of the Fair Maps referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. And Barb Arnest?
Good morning. My name is Barb Arnst, and I live between New Richmond and Roberts. I'm a resident of St. Croix County. I support a Fair Maps referendum being placed on the ballot in April of 2020. The citizens of St. Croix County should have the opportunity to express how they feel about having legislative and voting district maps drawn in a fair, nonpartisan, and transparent process. St. Croix County will hopefully then join the 48 other Wisconsin counties that have now passed measures in support of fair maps. Last January, the Marquette Law School poll showed that 72% of Wisconsin voters want a nonpartisan commission to draw legislative maps instead of elected officials. At that time, 41 counties had approved such measures, and in October 2019, the 48th county came on board. Please put the Fair Maps referendum on the April 7th, 2020 ballot. We want to send a message to our legislators that we want fair and impartial maps drawn by a nonpartisan commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Wood? She already talked, didn't she? I thought she talked already. Go back. Linda Hendricks.
Good morning. My name is Linda Hendricks, and I live in New Richmond, Wisconsin. I'm here to speak on gerrymandering, of which I am not an expert. Gerrymandering is when politicians manipulate voting district boundaries to favor one party over another. The first case occurred in 1810 in the state of Massachusetts. Governor Eldridge Gerry's district was redrawn to help him retain power. The result was an odd-shaped design resembling a salamander, hence the term gerrymander. We have been doing this now for over 200 years, Democrats and Republicans altering maps in their favor. I believe it's time for nonpartisan fair maps, and that no one, Democrats or Republicans, should be able to alter the voice of the people. For the most part, for me, the most distressing part of the gerrymandering issue is not so much who is elected as the policies that those elected officials put in place. Do they represent the true wishes of the majority of the people? Or do they benefit only a minority who currently has control and desires personal gain? Fair maps are essential for making sure the voices of the majority are heard. This is the cornerstone of democracy. Now is the time to ask the voters. Please vote yes for a Fair Maps referendum on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Jacob?
Good morning. Every 4th of July, we come together, we celebrate our republic, our democracy, our Constitution, our country. This morning, we all stood and pledged our allegiance to the flag with liberty and justice for all. What does all of that mean if we're willing to let a group of politicians from either side pervert and corrupt our political process? I'm here to ask you to please vote yes, to allow the people of St. Croix County to have our voices be heard. I want to thank this board for passing a referendum previously on this issue, but that wasn't enough, because the people that control power currently, and the pendulum will switch, it'll go back the other direction at some point, they don't care. They don't have to care. Because our districts are so badly gerrymandered, they can do whatever they want, and the will of the people doesn't matter. So it's not enough to have a county board say, hey, we'd like fair maps. They need to hear that their voters, the will of the people, say, we want fair maps. It is powerful, ladies and gentlemen, to have the community be able to speak on this, to be able to look over and see that your neighbors, maybe on the other side of the political aisle, they want a fair play too. Right now, we're so divided. Our conversations are so few and far between. We talk past each other, not to each other. And this is an opportunity to come together as a community and realize that there is more that unites us than divides us. Please vote yes and give us this opportunity to move forward. Thank you.
Welcome. Virginia Draft.
Good morning, my name is Virginia Drath. I live at 1541 County Road, Emerald Township. On November 19th, I was driving by Emerald Sky Dairy and noted the staff was placing piping that is used to transfer manure from lagoons to fields. There was no snow on the ground, and I was told by an excavating contractor on November 11th that frost was down 8 to 10 inches. So I'm wondering what the heck is going on. I did email Jeff Jackson, the agricultural runoff specialist for DNR, and he did email back that he would check on it. To make a long story short, on November 20th to the 21st, after it rained late 11/19 and into 11/20, a manure spill occurred. The neighboring landowner noted activity in the field at 11 p.m. on the 19th and again at 4 a.m. on the 20th. He witnessed marine manure 5 to 6 inches wide in the ditch going past his home and eastward into Hutton Creek. This creek runs into the Willow River and eventually the St. Croix River. I put out a few copies of the spill report along with some pictures around the group here, and you can go online for the whole report. The fish kill pictures tell the story. There are 4 different minnow species pictured. I believe a couple of the rules in the nutrient management plan are that you don't spread on frozen ground and that you don't spread when rain is forecast within 24 hours. They did it anyway. This is the 4th violation in 3.5 years that we know of by Emerald Sky Dairy. Notification protocol was discussed after the water quality study was done, so now I'm asking, were the neighbors all the way downstream notified of the November spill? DNR did water tests all the way downstream to County Road O, and that was 3 miles away. The county is the one that does the permitting on the nutrient management plans. I would like to see a county notification protocol policy that requires DNR send a notice within 24 hours to any township that experiences a manure spill, and also send townships the final and any follow-up reports so that townships have records of the spill. My
Thank you.
faucets say hot and cold. They don't say Democrat or Republican. So this is everyone's problem. I'm asking for corporate council or whatever committees have to make up a moratorium again. Consider that again. We're going downhill. Thank you.
Jamie Johnson.
Good morning, I'm Jamie Johnson. I'm a town of Hudson resident for the last 19 years and resident of the county for over 29 years, and currently serving as the president. Oh, come on, my time can't be up. All right. I promise I won't use all the 2 minutes, but I am here speaking as an individual, not speaking on behalf of the Hudson School District, where I've served now in my 3rd term.
Yep.
But having been involved in the political process and talking to folks, I know that where a lot of things get done is in rooms where people can sit down and hash things out on a reasonable basis. And that's why I'm speaking in favor of the Fair Maps resolution being placed on the ballot as a referendum. This should be supported regardless of party, because as we know, cycles go through and parties in power switch. But we've had a lot of accusations of perceived corrupted elections, and it's gotten so bad, people are not voting. And so one way to restore that perception of lack of fairness and lack of transparency in our political process is to have this commission, so that the die is not cast before the people even get to the ballot. So I hope that you can vote yes and get this on the referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still open for public comment for anything on or off the agenda, if anyone. Elizabeth Wood? Yes, please step forward. What?
Now I am speaking as a St. Croix County taxpayer and resident. The recent unreported manure spill at the Emerald Dairy needs to be a wake-up call for everyone. The current lack of regulations on the CAFOs and the absurd self-reporting rule, it's not working, and it is dangerous to all of us. Protecting our access to clean water and protecting our entire watershed needs to be a priority for all of us. We should care about what's coming out of our neighbors' taps. This problem is not going away. I don't know if it's time to hit the panic button, but fields are saturated, our watershed is filled to capacity. Spring is going to bring huge public safety dangers to all of us. What is the plan? Why has this been allowed? And should it knowingly and recklessly, repeatedly endangering our community, our St. Croix Valley, our water source, have significant consequences? Obviously, the fine given to Emerald Dairy last year after months and months of litigation was just a slap on the wrist. They obviously have deep enough pockets that those fines mean nothing to them. They are going to continue to operate exactly how they're operating. I think we all needs to start paying attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're still open for public comment if somebody hasn't made a comment for things on or off the agenda. Still open for public comment. Yes, ma'am.
You did not fill out a slip. Is that okay? I just want to speak, as long as everybody else is, on the Suiday Farm, hog farm that's attempting to go in Burnett and Polk counties on the upper St. Croix River, and I'm really concerned about that. That's 26,000 hogs they're going to try to put in up there, and it's going to affect the watershed. It goes into the Fish Lake Wildlife Area, down into the if it runs through, it will run through Polk. It goes into the Willow and to the Apple Rivers, into Lake Malibu, I believe, and then into the St. Croix River and down. And I think we need to all be aware of this, and I'm so proud of people for standing up and speaking on this issue, because currently there's temporary moratoriums on these. Polk is probably about ready to expire pretty soon. There's a one-year one for Burnett that goes until, I believe, June or July or something like that. And then what's going to happen? Big Ag has environmental disasters in the making here for our river valley, and I think we need to all pay attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on or off the agenda during public comment? If not, we'll close public comment. Thank you, everyone. We'll move into our consent agenda. I need a motion to approve that. Supervisor Hanson, do I have a second? Supervisor Ochterhoff. We have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on that? And the only thing I'm going to say at this time, we have the date of our next meeting is February 4th. we'd like to change that to February 11th, if that's okay with everybody. So if you look at your calendars and see what you think about that. If that sounds all right, that'll be the date we'll put in there for that, is February 11th then for the next county board meeting. It'll still be at 8 a.m. So with any discussion on this? No discussion? We'll vote at this time. Come on.
Did you vote? I think you got to vote.
What? We got David has to vote yet. No, I gotta confirm mine. Slap me harder. And that's all yeses, thank you. And presentations, we don't have any of those.
Yeah, I do have one,
Do you
Mr.
have one?
Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Steve Kurt, who is the Deputy Director of Health and Human Services. I think Steve, yep, there's Steve. Steve's going to recognize a couple of staff people in the Health and Human Services program that have made some significant improvements in the, which program is it?
Intoxicated driver program.
Yep, the IDP program. So go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Pat, and
Yeah.
thank you, supervisors. Last summer, it was brought to our attention that we weren't in conformance with the statutes as far as the time frame in which someone who needs an intoxicated driver program assessment because they've been convicted of operating a vehicle while intoxicated violation, we weren't in compliance in getting them in a timely fashion. At that point, in July, end of July, when the Health and Human Services Board heard about this, it took about 2 months for individuals from the time they called for an appointment to actually see the intoxicated driver program assessor. And in working with our Health and Human Services Board, we made a commitment to reduce that time to under 2 weeks, and we thought we could get it done by November. We were able to accomplish that by the end of October, and currently are within that 14-day time frame. It slips based on vacations and holidays and whatnot. It may be 2 or 3 days outside of that, but it's right around those 14 days. And so I'm here to share with you the individuals who are most responsible for doing that. And so Kristen Depre is our alcohol and drug abuse supervisor, and she oversaw the process. Mel Solsvig is our intoxicated driver program assessor. And do you want to just stand, Kristen, and then Mel? And then we asked Julie Tyson, who is an alcohol and drug abuse counselor, to step into the intoxicated driver program assessor role. So she had to be trained to be able to do this, and she was willing to take that on. And then Carmen Swartz at the end is our program support specialist, and her job is to organize, herd the cats, if you will, and organize the process and keep it flowing. So she was very instrumental. And then Dina Zemke and Kelly Sosnowski are the schedulers who took the calls. And when we first made this commitment and moved Julie into the role, there were a number of individuals already scheduled out 2 months that had to be called and offered the opportunity to move up in the schedule. And so those two worked real hard to coordinate that schedule. We also have other counselors, 4 other counselors that weren't directly involved, but also help support from the behind process, and that would be Kayla Turpin, Brian Fields, Jamie Altoff, and we have a new hire, Amber Falls. She just started yesterday, so she doesn't get any credit for this. But but they do play a major role in helping, because all of this is a team approach. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you to those people.
Thanks.
We'll move on to our annual reports. Our medical examiner, Patty Schottner.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm sure you all read the annual report. This year, or 2019, we, as predicted, we went over the 600 mark. So far in 2020, we're already at 14. We're already 2 autopsies and 6 scenes. So as we look past at the 2019 and we look forward to 2020, it's really important to really start thinking about how we're going to address this. This is going to impact us. There are 12,460 people in St. Croix County over the age of 65. The last one will turn 65 in 7 years. Those numbers will continue to increase. The complexity of the cases will continue to increase. And, you know, I work at the will of the policymakers here and the budget that you set forth. So autopsies, the price has not went up, but there is a change in leadership at Ramsey County who does our autopsies. It's not unreasonable to think that as the shortage of forensic pathologists really start to impact, that our costs will go up. So the purpose of the report is to show you what's coming so that you're prepared when you make these decisions and budgetary decisions. We have ran a really tight budget, and we will be over budget this year. And from here going forward, we have to budget for at least 50 more deaths a year to keep up to the trends that we have. So, of course, our goals are lofty and a vision that we have for St. Croix County and as we deal with the medical examiner's office. But we are not, we're ready for the challenge. And when you look at the new building that we have, that we've been able to repurpose, we have been able to serve decedents and their families from all over the world. So it has a global approach. We're able to have a trauma-informed approach when we deal with our decedents' families. And I think that we are a leader in the region for how the medical examiner's office operates. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
Actually, I have 2. One is on page 21, you got it right there. How come your revenue is 0?
It's not 0. I didn't fill that in.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Whoopsies. Our 2019 revenue, I still have my billing for to come in for the cremations from December. So I think we are close to, last I checked, was that 41,000? It's in the It's in the report. But our revenues are also impacted. I'm glad you brought that up. The state funeral fund. So as decedents, especially senior citizens, spend down assets, there comes that point when they qualify for state funeral funds. And so the first thing the funeral home does is call to see if they qualify, and if they qualify, then we can't charge. And so that there is another thing that's going to be impacting us. And of course, we are a small county compared to some of the larger counties. So the counties that have a higher volume have access to those dollars before the smaller counties. So that does impact our revenues. But once our final billing comes in, we'll get those numbers to you.
And then the second question is on page 22. You said work on 5-year plan for national accreditation.
Yes.
Okay. if you get that, what does that mean in regards to workloads or finances?
So accreditation is more of a process saying that our department follows all the national and international standards. It's not necessarily a cost, it's that we're doing our work to meet all the standards. They come in and inspect our office, so we have the web-based, we're almost completely paperless. We have a separate lab, we have a separate cooler, we have all these things already. So now that we have them, we can start working towards the process to get the accreditation so that if in the future they want to do autopsies here in St. Croix County, it is possible. We have the capacity to do that, which then goes towards regionalization, which then we could utilize our space that we have in a broader spectrum and actually then start bringing in revenue and then have our own pathologists in this area, in the region.
Thanks.
Supervisor Hanson?
I also have two questions. The first is, would you please describe what the LODOX system is?
Sure. So because of the shortage of forensic pathologists in this country, LODOX is a digital, so it's like an MRI. And so we would be able to, so like right now with our autopsies, about 50% of our autopsies come back as a natural death. So they don't really need to have the standard cut down autopsy. An MRI showing and having a forensic pathologist read the x-rays would be suffice. It would, in the long run, be a cost saver, but again, it's up to the policymakers and people who do the budget to decide if St. Croix County is ready for this or not. If we're not, we still go to Ramsey County, and Ramsey County will do the autopsies just like we're doing now. Nothing will change. If we want to consider the LODOX, then we would not have to autopsy everybody, and we would do this LODOX vision, which then in the long run, thinking far out, would be a cost saver. So in the last 5 years, we've spent almost $500,000 on autopsies. And this machine costs about that amount. So thinking long term, but I operate at the will of the board. So you guys decide. You decide which one's worth it. It's either way. I can work with either one.
So I wouldn't call 5 years long-term. Just a comment. My second question is going to sound flippant maybe, and the graph is actually up, coincidentally. Under preventable deaths, how do you decide that an undetermined cause of death was preventable?
Well, it's what was the cause. So the manner is undetermined. The cause, so if you have let's use a drug overdose, when the toxicology comes back, what is the level at? And is it because they had alcohol and medication, they mixed it? I don't know what their intent was. There's nothing to say that this was a suicide or that this was an accident. So it's better to go with undetermined, and then the case then stays open, and then if we have evidence to the other, then we can go back and change the death certificate.
Okay, Supervisor Motato.
Along the lines of the goals and objectives and the preventable death information, what exactly is the goal and objective in presenting that information and gathering that information? What do you do with that information, and how does that in line with your goals?
Okay, so if you actually look at our accidental deaths, you look at it and go, ooh, our accidental deaths have increased substantially over time. But then the question is, what was the accident? And for us, what is increasing our accidental death numbers is falls from senior citizens. So now it then becomes something of what do we do education-wise to talk about fall prevention at home, because more and more people are staying at home. So we're talking about, this is something we can then bring to public health, to the ADRC. These are educational things that we can put out there. And it's not necessarily so for senior citizens, it's also for family members and community members to look at their spaces and what's safe. You know, is it a slip on the ice? Is it a slip of because of rugs? Is it because the bed is too high? What caused the fall in that? So when you look at that, you know, yes, our traffic numbers have went up, but a lot of our falls are from the elderly, and you have 6 months from the time of the fall to the time of the death where it still impacts the cause and manner. Yes.
Mr. Malik.
Is there a LoDoc unit between Eau Claire and St. Paul?
Well, Ramsey County has one. Yeah, Ramsey County does have one, and Dane County has one, Milwaukee has one. It's really the wave of the future, because it's a way to deal with efficiencies because of the increase in calls. And there is a standard on how many actual autopsies a forensic pathologist can do. So, you know, when you think about that, they have 4 forensic pathologists at Ramsey County, and they had close to 3,000 cases, 3,000 full autopsies. And, you know, so you start looking at the number of autopsies. It's just like everything else, there's a standard. So,
Well, I was wondering is whether there's potential of selling our service as a LoDoc provider to
Yes.
surrounding counties who are also using Ramsey County or some other place for autopsies. Could you possibly negotiate contracts in advance with them to send us 10 a year, 20 a year, or whatever, and thereby decrease the payback period that Dan alluded to?
oh, yes, I've already talked to my colleagues in the other counties. We're all dealing with the same thing, you know, and trying to figure out how that would work. And I've talked to John Bonaprice a couple times in Polk County, and he too knows how much this is impacting their budgets. Now, you know, granted, our autopsy rate is, I you know, really credit a really good team, and we have the time to be able to not bypass autopsies. There are a lot of counties in St. Croix, or a lot of counties in Wisconsin, that they autopsy every scene visit. We would have nearly, I mean, our budget would be almost quadruple if we autopsied every scene visit. This is a way to eliminate that, but, you know, we have to be able to make our decisions based on cause and manner, not passion and speed.
So theoretically, it would be possible to go together with some other counties and purchase price of a LoDoc unit and have it located in some central location and shared?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I think everything is an opportunity right now, and Congress just did a study. I sent it out to the Public Protection Committee, and it really did state that as we move into the future for medical examiner offices and coroner's offices, that regionalization is the only way that it's going to be effective and efficient. It's something we have to do. So we are ahead of the game. We can start having conversations, and that's why it's on my goal list. But at the end of the day, it's up to the board to decide where we're going with this conversation.
Any other, Supervisor Akshaw?
One more quick, on page 22 of the graph right underneath that, the office data, what does DC stand for?
Death certificate signing.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
Our next one's the Child Support Department. Lisa Plunkett.
Actually, we're going to have Chad Wolski fill in
Chad.
for Lisa this morning because Lisa's a little bit under the weather.
Yeah, the fearless leader lost her voice, so I'll do the speaking. Just some of the highlights from 2019. We met 3 of the 4 federal performance measures last year. The one performance measure that we didn't meet was the arrears collection rate. We had missed by less than 1%, but the positive is that we did increase that from the previous year by about 1.5%. I know the goal of our agency this year is to sort of focus on that standard and hopefully meet that for 2020. We're in the 20th century now, I'd say, on our click and pay option for our clients. So Lisa and I had both been pushing the state to come up with click and pay, click enter your credit card or your debit card number and pay your child support. Try to make it as easy as possible for the clients that are self-employed to make payments. The state hasn't done that yet, but locally we worked with a vendor and we have that up and running now. So people that are self-employed, they can still send a check, still send a money order, but if they want to pay by a credit or debit card, they have that option now. Through GovPay, it's now known as allpaid.net. One of the big things that we piloted this year as well is, or 2019, is a work program called Crossroads. So for our unemployed, non-custodial parents that are seeking work, we assist them in job training and placement. And it's not the child support workers, we sort of handle the in-between, but Workforce Resources handle the job program in St. Croix County, and that piece of it's handled by Heather Jensen, and she's basically working with our clients, giving them the contact information. There's really low unemployment right now, so usually it's just finding what barriers our non-custodial parents have, if it's a criminal record, if it's mental health or alcohol and drug problems, sort of finding those and then working with them to get them employed. Budget-wise, I haven't looked much at this over the last year, but as far as the budget goes, it looks like still we're not on the levy. Our reimbursement from the feds through the state pays for a number of the expenses for our program, and then our incentives for meeting those federal performance goals sort of makes up the difference. Our agency also is on a number of state and national committees. It sort of lets the St. Croix County Department make the state aware and sort of the national players aware of what we're working on here, the needs of St. Croix County, and sort of gives us input on the new programs that are coming out, new software that's being developed, and then so when it's built, we're not saying we can't work with this or it doesn't work for our agency. We've already had some input going into it. We're on document work group committees, the Child Support Online Modernization Project. I'm a board of directors for the Wisconsin Child Support Association. Our agency continues through Lisa to have a contract with Buffalo and Pepin counties that generates some additional revenue for St. Croix County. So sort of the expertise of our agency is able to draw down by helping other counties out. The big thing that we're always trying to improve is technology. That's 2019. That's what we're focusing on in 2020 as well. Electronic case files helped out a lot. Electronic filing with the clerk of courts has helped out a lot. The click and pay options. And we'll continue to sort of push on that side of it because the better technology improvements that we have, the better, the more efficient that we are in our agency. For right now, we just hired our last remaining child support specialist, case manager. So our specialists are fully staffed now. We're down full-time staff there for part of 2019. And then we're in the process of hiring our front desk staff, our customer service rep. And then we'll be fully staffed and everyone will smile a little bit more and maybe not lose any more hair off the back of my head. And we're working on sort of our work program and some early interventions for 2020 to try and prevent some of the past due support that can accumulate on the cases and keep people employed as much as possible. I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments.
Supervisor Hanson.
Chad, that's a good report. I'm a little worried about the use of credit cards. I know electronic payment is very convenient, but is there a balance? We put payees under a great deal of pressure to stay current. And I'm worried that the use of a credit card may put them in arrears in their personal finance. Are you doing anything to make sure that this is not the case, that we're not pushing somebody so hard fiscally that they put themselves in a bad situation?
Yeah, I mean, we do worry about that. The one thing that our agency has done is we've tried to streamline our modification process to try and, if people have changes of income, that we're able to get them in to set their child support obligation at their income level. There are other options that don't have additional fees associated with them. There is a pay-by-phone option, bank transfers, those types of things that we prefer people to use. It's just an option if people need to get that payment in sort of on a one-off. And also, it's debit card and credit card, so it's not necessarily just payment by credit card, which could affect their personal finances.
I would suggest if somebody's a frequent credit card user that you flag that, go in, talk to them, make sure that they're not hurting themselves.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll add it on. We actually have a staff meeting tomorrow, so we'll put that in. We just got it up and running in the last 2 months, I think, and there hasn't been a lot of use on it. I think we've had 2 separate pairs that have used it so far, but I think that's a great idea, and sort of reach out to them to see if there's something that if a modification is potentially appropriate, or offer some of the other ones that aren't associated with credit cards.
Can you tell the difference when you receive payment between a debit and a credit payment?
I've only looked at those couple of payments that have come in. I know we can see partial credit, the card numbers, but I'm not sure if it lists, offhand. We'll take a look at it. I can't, like I said, with the few payments, I don't know if it indicates if it was a debit or a credit, but I think either way, if we see someone using it frequently, because there are fees associated with it, it's a no fee for the county, but the people are paying the fees as far as processing the cash payments, so we can reach out to them definitely.
Thank you.
Supervisor Octroff?
Yeah, 2 questions. One is on page 23. It says approved 2019 budget, $728,000, and actual 2019 budget, $579,000. What is the difference?
It's just, I believe it's probably just through 3 quarters. I'm assuming so. The revenue that comes in, we get it in quarterly reimbursement amounts. So we've gotten the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. The fourth quarter usually doesn't come in until, until about March, because they have to report it, they look at it all, and then they cut a check back to us. So you can see it's about 75% of the revenue.
And my second question is on the bottom of page 24. The chronic delinquent participants, what is that going up or down, or how is that going?
Yeah, so we've made improvements in our current support collection rate. So the amount that's paid, that's due each month, has gone down. So we're making improvements on that. Part of it's the economy. It's great when the unemployment rate's really low. People have less trouble finding employment. But that rate is down. But we still have a group of individuals, less than 20%, where they're missing payments, or they're trying to make up the past due amounts that we want to work with, focus on, because if we can sort of get them employed, get them making payments, it helps the families, the children's, and also in their personal lives. If someone's employed and has income coming in, it could, potentially stop them from falling into some of these other programs, economic support, homelessness, alcohol and drug issues, those types of things.
20% seems high. Is that normal or average?
Well, the federal performance amount is 80%. It's actually really high compared to other counties. I think we dropped to 3 this year. In the nation, Wisconsin's 3rd in the nation for current support collections. And part of it is just part of the percentage is sort of built in. This is sort of in the minutia of child support. They prorate it. So most orders are monthly. Most people get paid bi-weekly. So there's a built-in about 9% that shows as unpaid, but it's made up on the third pay period of the year. So like I said, it's probably, if all orders were bi-weekly or everyone got paid monthly, we'd be closer to that 90% rate, but it's sort of a built-in issue into the child support program.
Any other questions? Not seeing any? Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, guys.
Next agenda item is Emergency Support Service, Terry Anderson and Natasha Cardinal.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Natasha and I will split. We'll both speak, and then if we can do questions at the end, that'd be how we prefer it. So for emergency communications, I'll be brief, hit the high points. As you know, the phase 2 is nearly complete. There's a few odds and ends that have to be completed this spring with some landscaping at the Holton site. And then as well, at the City of Hudson, we've been working with one of the water towers that has to be refurbished, repainted. So we, Emergency Support Services, have to pull our equipment off of that tank while they do that work and then put it back on. There's also been some enhancements in the mobile communications vehicle with the radio equipment. That's a huge enhancement for us at the scene of any incident that we roll out on. And as well, that equipment can be moved whenever we do get a new vehicle to put it in. We'll be able to pull that out. There's been several technology enhancements in the 911 center. The OneLink software, which allows us to see in real time anytime there's a request for a medical helicopter at a trauma scene or a great health emergency where the helicopter has to respond to the scene. The dispatchers can do it basically online without having to pick up a phone and make a phone call, but they can see in real time the ETA of the helicopter arriving at the scene, so they can relay that to the agencies that are at the scene if they're having to extricate somebody, and then they can make that determination if they get them out quicker than thought, if they can go to the hospital for stabilization, or if they should wait at the scene for a scene landing from the helicopter. As well, there's a Rapid SOS software program, and these are all free, by the way. This Rapid SOS program is the wireless tracking. It's an enhancement to what we currently had with our 911 system, but this allows us, after the person hangs up, for an additional 2 minutes to track the person, the phone. So if they're walking down the street, we can see them as they're progressing down the street. It's been a huge improvement, and they're continuing to enhance that software today as we speak. Additionally, the staff recruitment, retention, we've had 2 people retire over the course of 2019. I'm aware that there's probably going to be 3 or 4 within the next 2 years retiring as well. I did have 1 person transfer out of our department, and I have another that's notified me that within the next 6 months or so, they'll be changing careers as well. So we're still down 5 people overall with the additional person we have for 2020. We started a person yesterday. There's several in the process of recruitment right now. So our hopes are by summer to be back up to where we need to be. So it's a continually evolving staff for us down there. In the future, we have this year coming up with the CAD, the RMS, and the 911 upgrades. So we have a lot on our plate with the recent merger with the Sheriff's Office. We've been working with them and all the police departments since they all will be coming forward with the enhancement of the new system for the records management system. Our 911 service, the newer one that we'll be getting this summer, is a robust system that's allowing the interfaces to a lot of the programs which we're currently using, like the Rapid SOS. That's an interface that's built right into the new system. The new system will allow us to send messages out to a caller, and they'll be able to send pictures from the scene directly to us, and it'll attach to the document. Law enforcement in the field will be able to see them pictures immediately, so if there's a suspect vehicle or whatever it is, they'll be able to see that almost in real time. So it's a huge improvement. Our calls were up slightly from last year. in the 12-month period from December through end of November of 2019. The increase of calls of 2.6% in the 911 call field alone in itself. Some of the numbers, for the numbers that we track, are up 1,000 calls for the entire year. So I'm assuming some of them were multiple, I shouldn't say multiple, they could have been multiple calls or follow-up calls that people are making, contacting 911 where they need to speak to law enforcement, following up on a case that they're dealing with. That's about the highlights that I got for you. I'll turn it over to Ms. Cardinal right now.
Good morning. The state of Wisconsin had a very busy year in 2019, including the polar vortex in January, flooding in March and April, and tornadoes in the summer. St. Croix County was very fortunate that we did not experience several critical infrastructure damage with these hazardous events, but we were very busy and heavily involved with damage assessment data collection, outreach with both the spring thaw with flooding, and assisting Polk County following the July severe storms and tornadoes. We utilized our St. Croix Valley Medical Reserve Corps unit, placing calls for volunteers to assist with various relief efforts. Polk County opened up a volunteer reception center for 3 days in July to organize volunteers and equipment to go out and do debris cleanup, management, and assign them tasks. St. Croix County Emergency Management was on site those 3 days to help collect information with the DNR and assist in damage collection information. One of the greatest achievements with emergency management in 2019 came through a joint application with Glenwood City for a pre-disaster mitigation grant, Safe Room, also known as a tornado shelter. St. Croix County will receive about $495,000 in grant dollars to build the Safe Room and will commit to a 10% match. Wisconsin Emergency Management completed their initial review of the grant application in January of 2019, approved the application for submission to FEMA, and on June 19th, FEMA determined that our application complies with guidelines and has selected St. Croix County Fairgrounds Safe Room for project funding. Right now, we're just waiting for FEMA to grant the award, which can take several months. Other events in emergency management in 2019 included 7 different exercises that we either conducted or participated in, updating our extremely hazardous substance plans for 12 different off-site planning facilities, and securing nearly $18,000 in funds to support responders, hazardous materials, emergency preparedness courses.
Any questions? Supervisor Fosterling. Supervisor Foster.
Yeah, I just have a question. In your goals and objectives, you reference continuing to lobby and be an advocate for 911 reform. So, is it possible, could you elaborate on that a little bit? What are you looking for?
Well, currently with the Next Gen 911 at the state level, the funding, they're trying to get the funding there so they can grant funds for 911 enhancements. There's a lot of agencies that are not as fortunate as we are. The 911 systems they have are old, and they are not even compatible with the current technology that's coming. At our level here, we are at that level right now. We just need the pipeline, if you will, come from the state that will allow the data to come from a state resource and flow up to the 911 center itself. So we're using any of the political people that are in our region, contacting them, working with them. There's the Office of Emergency Communications at the state that we're working with and listening to and participating in any way or fashion that we can to promote what we need.
And then just another question. You indicated growth of 2.6%, and could you maybe opine a little bit on as to what is driving that, since it exceeds the population growth?
I think it's the aging population. Our medical calls are up. The law enforcement calls overall have been holding the last couple of years, but as I indicated, I think there's a lot more follow-up. I think everybody, when I say everybody, the customer, if you will, they're a need. They want to know more. They have more information. They're reaching out to the law enforcement officer that's handling our case, wanting more information or provide more.
Supervisor Hanson.
Looking down the road with the retirements and the great need that you're going to have you, is there a way that you can reach out to at college, or are you dealing with a source, trying to cultivate new, and then what do you need from us? What should we be looking at in terms of supporting that effort?
Good question. The technology schools, Chippewa Technical College in Eau Claire will be participating in their outreach programs when they have their career days and such there. We've been working with the Sheriff's Office. They've been going to River Falls, working with a group down there for veterans, trying to get them involved, finding jobs. So we've been branching out. The Human Resources Department here has been attending the technical colleges for career day and such, and carrying forward items like that. In regards to the recruitment, we've been doing that. The job that my staff do downstairs is a very technical, and it's becoming more technical each and every day. It takes a special person. What the board has been doing for support has been tremendous. I can't say thank you enough. Continue supporting us as you have. We've been working with the Sheriff's Office now that we've merged. We've been working with Human Resources and trying to find quality people to fill them chairs so they can answer the calls as needed and handle the emergencies that come in.
Any other questions? Supervisor Malik.
I think this is a Natasha question. I believe it was in his report last year, Steve Koch indicated that he was dissatisfied by communication from the state about some information. I think it was on hazmat locations, businesses, that he could not get that information and the ability to timely pass on to local fire departments. Does that ring a bell to you at all, and has any progress been made?
I'm not,
Does that ring a bell at all? Maybe I'll have to look at last year's report.
I'm thinking maybe what he was referring to is when there's a hazardous material event or something that hazmat on scene, does that law enforcement first responder have access right away to that facility in that location? And he was looking for some sort of electronic format or something that could be transferred to them quickly. What we do when I update those facilities, so I take a percentage and do 25% of our facilities in the year, and it comes out to be about 10 to 12 facilities, and that's the plans that I update. And at the end of those updates, they get signed off by Wisconsin Emergency Management, reviewed, and the plan is shared with the facility, with all first responders, so our sheriffs, law enforcement, fire departments, those plans are distributed to them, so they're knowledgeable and aware of what the locations are, the roads surrounding them, what's in them. Electronic version, I mean, we send that to them, but I think maybe he was wanting something that they could quick pull up on the way, and no, that hasn't. There's no statewide format that the first responder can pull up. If that's what he was referring to. But they do get the plans distributed to them each year.
And as far as you know, there is no plan at the state level to make a modern format available?
Well, we have what's called our WHOPPERS program, Wisconsin Hazmat Online Planning Reporting Program, and I don't know if they have access to it, but that's something they can't. Along the way, it's not going to be convenient for them to pull it up on the way to a scene, but I'll check and see if they have access, the first responders have access to that program. It's something I have access to look and get records of all our planning facilities in the state and our county, and exactly what their plans are and their Tier 2 reports and what their substances are.
Well, I mentioned that to the Hudson fire chief when I met him incidentally, and he really thought it would be of great value to their forces to be able to have the latest available information on how to access the inside of a building and what they would find when they got there, I think. I gather that's what it was about.
I'm on 2 state groups. One of them is Whoppers and EPGRA, so I can bring that to the state subcommittee group as a suggestion.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Supervisor Schreiner?
Yes, I see on the end users for the fire EMS that wishing to interface with the new CAD system that'll be brought online. Will there be a significant cost for the local fire EMS to join in on that?
The cost depends on the agency, how much they want in devices attached to the system. Each of the departments, fire-wise, I believe there's only 2 agencies in St. Croix County that did not sign up and sign an agreement with the company, the vendor that we are going with. But they have all selected what each individual agency wanted, whether they wanted 6 devices per se or just stay at 2. It was up to them. It ranges in price anywhere from $1,000 per year. I think the most was around $4,500 a year for them to have licenses for the software.
Thank you.
Any other questions? That's it. Thank you. Our Sheriff's Office and Jail Department report. Sheriff Scott Knutson. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. You'll see, obviously, the year-end report that was submitted. There's a couple updated numbers. I had shared these with the Public Protection Committee the other morning. And the reason for the update is at the end of the year now, I finally have the yearly total for the Day Report Center. And I thought some information was worth sharing on some of the statistics. There were, in 2019, there were 624 subjects that were on bond that utilized the Day Report Center. Through those 624 people, of course, some have 3 times a week, some had some call-in times. But there was 14,204 scheduled tests for 2019. Those 624 subjects, 457 of them had no violations and no bail jumping referrals. So our compliance rate right now is at 90.69%, which I think is a very good number to have. I also thought it was interesting to note, as the system broke it down, 81 people had 1 bail jumping referral, and that bail jumping referral could be anything from a failed test to multiple no-shows combined into one. So if somebody were to miss a test and then show up the next time and test positive or test negative and pass, they wouldn't necessarily be sent up for a referral for a bail jumping charge. They would review it and see if it fit that. So not each one of the misses ended up being a referral. But 81 people had 1, 35 people had 2, and as we move down the list, 3 people had a total combined of 37 bail jump charges, bail jump referrals. So you take out those 37 with 3 people, and there was a lot of compliance in amongst the people that did show up. And I think that's a good testament to the investment that the board had made several years ago with that Day Report Center. And I know the judges and the district attorney are, I believe, seeing some of the positives of that area as well. And that obviously goes to the support for from the CJCC committee also. We talked about our average daily population. And that had been a topic throughout the year. Through November, our average daily population was 126 inmates in the jail. which was up from 2018 of 109 and 2017 of 101. But I pulled the statistics for the last 4 years of the average daily population for January of each year. In January of 19, a year ago, we were at 116. In January of 18, we were 113. January of 17, we were 102. In January of 16, we were 93. January 1st of this year, we were at 93. We ranged anywhere from the 80s several weeks ago to back in May, I reported we were at 151. So we had a 60 swing inmate count over that time. Today we're at 98 for our average daily population. It's ebbing and flowing, and we're changing up how we refer, though those referrals from the Day Report Center are not as impactful on that statistic of those that are in. Because if they do violate, they're brought in, they're given either a notice to appear to meet the judge, or they are, when they do see the judge, the bond is modified, maybe more testing. You know, and as Judge Needham pointed out at the public protection the other day, of those 3 people, the 37, they knew they were going to violate. They knew they willfully came in knowing that they were going to test positive. So there is that cry for help of, okay, I know I need help. I'm still going to show up. I'm still going to do my very best to comply of showing up. So I think those resources are being utilized well as far as the monitoring. Those were a couple of the things I wanted to add to what I had already submitted. Mr. Chair.
Any questions? Supervisor Octorov.
Couple. It's not even work. Couple questions. John gets here. Okay. On page 35, I guess my comments are about for the mental health provider. You know, you said that there were, you know, they had been 85 a month and they were only putting in 96 hours. That's increased, but I can see why, because I don't see how you can evaluate and then work on what you're going to do with just an hour per person. And my question is, what determines when the mental health provider isn't at the jail? Like if it's on a weekend, or what happens when there isn't one available? What happens to the person?
It depends on the crisis that they're in. Many times when they meet with that person on their scheduled days, it's to check in, see how they're doing. When there's not a mental health person available, and you know, sometimes the deputy will speak with them briefly. They'll get a book, something with a tablet, phone call home. If they're in a severe crisis, then we would obviously utilize some form of reevaluation within our suicidal or mental health questions. And if need be, we would contact the mobile crisis Northwest connections to review their status. If they were in that much of a crisis, they may be relocated to Mendota, Winnebago, Eau Claire. But as far as the regular checkups, the weekends, mental health is not normally available.
Another question on page 41. With the dogs, I think it's great that you're using them. I think it's great that you're adding a second one, but I noticed that financially, the K-9 unit, if you look at the funding for it, I think I had it on page 41. Yeah, because on page 52, it was revenues were down for the dog unit. How are you going to handle it? Because I know it's all volunteer, And now you're adding a second dog, and like I say, on page 52, it says that revenues are down a lot compared to 2018. I know 2019's total may not be in there, but how is that being handled?
Still through some very good donors that we've had, our fundraising. We'll do our golf tournament in the fall. This year we did not do canine calendars, but I anticipate we'll pick that up again next year. So we'll continue to do fundraising, and the support from the community has been really, really good for us.
What happens if you don't have the funding, especially now with 2 dogs?
Well, we've had 2 before, we've had 3 before.
Oh, okay, then you know what you're getting at. Okay.
Yeah, so we've, just through some attrition issues, we've gone down the 2 dogs. We've got 1 slated for starting here next month, and then we have a spot saved in 2021.
Okay, and last question is, with the patrol, since there's been no increase in 16 years, and I'm assuming, at least where I live, they are cutting back. So how is that, have you noticed a difference in response time or people's comments from out of the Hudson area?
Comments from the Hudson area or?
No,
response
out of the
time?
Hudson, because, I mean, you say, you know, the patrol hasn't increased in 16 years.
Yes.
There's a lot more people, and there's a lot more people on both sides, both the east and west of St. Croix County, but I know a lot of the eastern counties have cut back on their police or sheriff or whatnot. And so have you noticed anything different, or how vital is it going to be for the patrol to increase, or how's that working?
Well, I think that ebbs and flows as well, depending upon the call volume. So how we have it, we have different zones. We split the county down the middle, County Road T, and then we use County Road E from Holton to Hammond. So we have 3 zones. Normally I have 4, if we're lucky, 5 patrol deputies out at a time. So we have 1 in each zone, and the remaining ones are roaming to help out. So there's somebody stationed down on the east end, there's somebody stationed up in the Somerset area, and they both have areas they can go do reports. In Baldwin, we have a satellite office, and in Richmond, we have a satellite office. So they're stationed in those areas. But now with 4 or 5, if we have a big crash somewhere or a critical incident taking place, they're all sucked to that one spot. There are always the comments of response time, but that could just be as well where we're located. Sometimes it's 25 minutes just to drive to one spot. And I know there are some outlying areas because of just the call volume on the east end, or on the west end. We sometimes get pulled into Hudson because of the higher population and the more traffic coming through on the bridges. So we've had to, over the years, prioritize some of those calls. And the mailbox vandalism may fall down the line a little farther than potentially a missing person, a domestic, a drunk driving complaint. So it's more prioritization out there with the staff.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Oh, and one more thing, I'm sorry. We did have our calendar contest the other night, so there's extra calendars over here. We did have
We gotta get done.
1,174 submissions from students throughout the county, and 35 judges helped judge that. So we had a nice ceremony the other day, so if anybody would like any calendars, I have a bunch. I threw one in each one of your boxes. Thank you for the support for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Get the county administrator's report for financials from October, November.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to zip through this. You have October's and November's. I'm just going to speak to November's financial report. I've looked through all the departments' revenues and expenditures, and I believe most, if not all, departments will be ending the 2019 calendar year, fiscal year in the black. For sure, at least on the bottom line, we will be in the black, both revenues and expenditures. So that's all I have in terms of comments. Next month's board meeting will have preliminary year-end financials.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? Supervisor Acton?
Just, if you're doing members, I'll talk loud. Page 55. And you're for the general unallocated expenses, and 18, it was over almost 5 million. And you don't have anything budgeted for 19, even though you're getting money in. How come nothing is budgeted?
What line item are you on?
110 page, I believe it's page 55.
110, general, or
56, sorry about that. Was- Second line down, under expenses.
oh, unallocated. Okay, is that what you're looking at, the unallocated line? There's 3.2 million that had not been anticipated. What we did was, if you recall, we transferred $3 million out of undesignated fund balance into the KIP, into the CIP, and then 200,000 into the retirement health savings account. So it was 3.2 million that we transferred from undesignated fund balance into those two categories. That was unanticipated in 2019. We did that, I'm not sure which month, but a couple months back. We made that transfer out of the undesignated fund balance. So that kind of skews the expenditure portion of the admin departments, if that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, okay. It just seems like you don't budget anything, but yet if you're looking at 18 and 19, we're in millions. So how come nothing's budgeted, or is that all for unallocated,
you know,
unexpected?
it goes back to the new ERP system that we've fully transitioned, but that's why I think in 2018 and 19 you see 4.8 million and 3.4 million in unallocated. And before I get too far into the weeds, I would probably ask Ken Witt to explain that, but hopefully we don't have to go into the ERP discussion today.
Any other, you waiting for Ken or not?
Yeah, well.
Okay. Any other questions then? Not seeing any, we'll.
Comparability from prior years because of the ERP changeover. So you can see that 19 is very clean. It's got just that 3.2 million, very crisp, clean number. It's because we have the process for 19 worked out now. And so it was just the transfer. We had done that, I think, in about August. So you can see the $3.2 million transfer. We never anticipate having surplus funds to transfer out, so we don't budget anything. And the 18 stuff that you're seeing is the residual effect of transferring from the old system to the new system. We had unallocated amounts that didn't transition well from one account number to the new account numbers. And those are all going to start dropping off now as we get into 2020. You're going to be looking at 19 data compared to 20 data, and everything will be really pretty, and you're going to love it.
You didn't wear your T-shirt today, Ken.
He's got it underneath his suit.
Supervisor Hanson?
Can I ask a question about the CIP? Yes. Can I ask about one specific line item, please? Regarding IT, it looks like $60,000+ remaining budget. Is there any way we can use some of that to fix the sound system in this room?
John.
Can I answer?
Yeah.
We are working with the vendor. They were in here in November. We didn't have a board meeting in December, so it seems to only happen when we have a large group of people in the room. They're working with the equipment manufacturers right now. As soon as it happened this morning, we called them again and said, hey, it's back. So they'll probably be out sometime this week to work on that. It is 6 years old. I am planning replacement in probably 2 years. I was hoping to get 8 to 10 out of it because it was a major investment back in 2014 before I started. But yeah, we definitely need to get some new mics and such.
You're one of the sweetest gentlemen I know. If you need somebody to call at him, have Jim Ellsbury call him.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Octorov.
I got one more. Okay, it's on the cap. Under Health and Human Services, the Senior Center's kitchen upgrade. It was supposed to have been done this year for $24,000, and as of November, nothing's been done. Is it going to be done?
Yes. So they have money budgeted in each of 5 years for senior center upgrades, and what they decided was they can do bulk purchases a little bit cheaper. So they delayed this year's, they're going to roll it into 2020, and they're going to do more in 2020 than using both years' budgeted numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If there's no further questions, we will move on. Thank you. Get into our business items. First one is resolution to grant a 66-foot easement in the town of Hudson, Eckert Bluff County Park. I need a motion to approve that. Supervisor Peterson, second. Supervisor Hanson. Discussion on that. If there's no discussion, no questions, we'll move forward and vote on that then at this time. We have a motion and a second. Are you going to move this one? We'll get it because we're going quick enough. Supervisor Peterson, we need your vote. One no and all yeses, so that passes. Thank you. We'll move on to the second one, which is the resolution to support for designation of the North Woods and water of the St. Croix County National Heritage Area. I need a motion on that. Supervisor Rostas, motion second by Supervisor Hanson. Discussion on that. We have a motion, Supervisor Beebe.
See if this one works. Look at that. I had contact with quite a few members of the aid community since this agenda came out. They were concerned about the unanticipated or unanticipated, I guess would be the best word, aspects of this, what it would have on the aid community. And I'm going to vote no because we don't know what could happen. And it could be hurting our farming community in the future. So I'll be voting no.
Supervisor Malik.
I'm a board member of the group that's been formed, a nonprofit charitable organization that is ready to implement this, has in fact started implementing some of the programs, particularly the free nonprofit calendar service that's available throughout the watershed to advertise upcoming events and some of the other tourist activities. So let me speak to the concern that the supervisor has raised. I would certainly not rule out the possibility of some unanticipated untoward consequence, but suffice it to say that no adverse consequences to the agricultural community are presently discernible. The reason I speak with any any uncertainty is that the future of the activities is in some sense yet to be determined, because local groups, local leaders, local chambers of commerce, local economic development corporations will determine what happens in the future. So that's another reason for any uncertainty, but that's sort of like saying St. Croix County government might have an adverse impact on the agricultural community. Possible, but on the other hand, as long as there's a lot of public input, we think it'll be for the public good overall. I would mention that the federal legislation, which is again being redrafted in order to suit the template of a particular congressional committee, that legislation specifically prohibits any national heritage area from having an impact on land use management. Things like zoning are specifically off limits for national heritage areas. And that's the area where I would suspect the supervisor's concern might most likely focus if something would come up that would affect land use management. And so that is off limits. So I feel pretty confident in saying that it's highly improbable that there would be an adverse impact to the agricultural community, to agricultural operations, to producers in that field. This is mostly about achieving a national, even an international brand for tourism. We who live right here sometimes don't think quite so much about whether we can be a destination for international tourists. When I was at a tourism conference of the Native American tribes of Wisconsin, believe it or not, last spring, and there was a lady who runs regular tours of Italians coming to Indian country to view powwows and other native activities and crafts, and going to casinos and experiencing the whole realm of Native American things. Over in Scandia, on the other side of the river, in Neverland there is a great camel garden museum, and people, Swedes particularly, come from Sweden to visit the place that some of their relatives, left and came to the New World and set up farming and all the rest of that. But so there are already some international tourists, but I think there could be a whole lot more. For example, I don't think the market of French people who have distant relatives who came here as fur trappers or voyageurs or whatever have been tapped at all. And of course there are other settlements, just to pick a few things. So there's a lot that could be said in favor of the National Heritage Area, but since it was supported unanimously at the Economic Development Corporation and unanimously at our own Community Development Committee, I don't want to belabor it. But I'm certainly happy to answer questions.
Any other questions or discussions? Supervisor Coulter.
Yeah, I'm going to vote no too. That yet to be determined thing, that's what we find out is an excuse for adding a lot more government to interfere with our own rights and our lives. And I oppose more government.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Supervisor Malik?
Speak to that, too. The legislation also requires that the organization be a non-government agency. And so that's why we have formed this 501c3 charitable nonprofit corporation and staffed it up with board members, 11 board members. There is a government liaison. That is because Congress put together a little office. I think it has 3 people in Washington that make sure that these natural heritage areas follow the guidelines that the government imposes when the federal money is being spent. And federal money is available when Congress chooses to approve it for matching grants, one-to-one grants. But there would be no local government office, no new government office established to have anything to do with this North Woods and Waters of the St. Croix National Heritage Area.
Thank you. Supervisor Hanson.
Buck, do you have any data on how the impact on tourism might have been in other national heritage sites when they first came online? What's been the impact on the local economies when they get a national designation?
In our materials, there was a multiplier ratio there. I looked at it last night, but I didn't print it or bring it. It seems to me it was 3.5 to 1, but I'm not, you all know. Some of you, maybe Judy has that right at the tip of her tongue. She's good with the numbers.
Supervisor Fosterling.
Yeah, Supervisor Malik, maybe you could answer these questions, but I'm wondering, you referenced guidelines, so, maybe you could kind of elaborate a little bit in terms of what are the guidelines, generally speaking, we're referring to, and then if federal money is spent, how is it spent? What is it used for?
The guidelines are a set of criteria to determine what is the overlying theme of a national heritage area. There needs to be some cohesive or some demonstrable thing that would cause Frenchmen to come visiting here and Scandinavians to come visiting here. And I mentioned the cultural heritage aspect of it. So there's a set of guidelines that relate to that, and that's where the Washington office correlates and makes sure that that's articulated in a rational way. The manner in which the money is spent is determined locally by applying for the federal money with a one-to-one match of local money. All of it initiated from the local end. In our case, we've already started this free event calendar thing so that nonprofits can advertise their events, like the Riverfest in Hudson. I put that up on there yesterday, and the Swan Walk at the Hudson Library with the trumpeter swans. I put that up there yesterday. We're anticipating advertising in European sources to attract, as I mentioned, the Italians and the Scandinavians and the Swedes and some of those who haven't yet been touched. Advertising in other parts of the United States to bring people here. As the Economic Development Corporation noted, when people come to visit the St. Croix watershed area, that 8,000 square miles that kind of looks like a map of Africa, if they come by plane or rail or highway, they're going to pass through either Washington County or St. Croix County. And we have then the opportunity to help them spend their money and have a memorable trip. So I'm anticipating that would be the future focus of the matching money being spent. That's the way they do it in Detroit, where they have a Motor City National Heritage Area, or in the southern two-thirds of the state of Illinois, where they have a land community national heritage area. Those I'm sort of familiar with. The other 45 or so I haven't paid much attention to, except to see that they're on the map, the same map we'd like to be on, and that's that improvement.
Okay, thank you.
So when you say that, when you're describing the guidelines, it sounds more like the criteria for qualification, but then are you also saying that there are actually no obligations in terms of local government or, implications? Yeah.
There are no obligations except, of course, if you apply for some matching money, then you have to fulfill the terms of your application. But other than that, I suppose in theory, National Heritage Area after it was designated could then just sit on its laurels and take no federal money and do nothing.
We have a motion and a second on the floor, so I think at this time we will vote on this. Three noes, the rest yes, that passes too. Thank you. Our next order is a resolution for a referendum on questions for fair maps. I have a motion, Supervisor Peterson, second, Supervisor Schoberg. Any discussion on this? Supervisor Fosterling.
Yeah, when I look at this, and I think the general concept is fairness, but it seems to be quite undefined. I have concerns about that. When I look at this, as I consider the Constitution of Wisconsin, it does put authority for apportionment in elected body. And I think that it would be good, to just state, maybe in the resolution itself, that would be at the very end of let's see here. It would actually be the second to last paragraph. Now therefore it be resolved that the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors insist upon the creation of a nonpartisan procedure of legislative and congressional redistricting plans consistent with the Wisconsin State Constitution. That would be I would move that we amend it to say that. And also on the question, for voting, that it also say consistent with the Wisconsin State Constitution.
Is that a motion, Dan?
Was it?
Okay.
Was that? That's a. Okay. Do I have a second to that? Supervisor Idle made a second to that. Discussion on that. Supervisor Malik.
Thank you. Learning to use this microphone, anti-microphone, whatever. I'm reminded of other situations in which lawyers are often asked, should we include in our motion something like, and no harm was done to animals, or and no one may be killed in the process of doing this. In other words, we operate within a framework of our Constitution, and only if we say we're going to change our Constitution is that implied. So I would suggest to you that the words are part of our fundamental framework that don't need to be said, and when they are put into a motion sometimes, then that raises a question. If we don't put that consistent with our Constitution the next time we do something, like when we approve or deal with a bonding matter in a few minutes. What are we implying when we omit those words? So I would just suggest that it's usually better practice not to, well, I don't want to sound, I am sounding paternalistic. I think at best, I would not support that amendment because it's already implied, it's already implicit, it's already part of our frame of government.
Schoberg.
Well, I think we need a second legal opinion on that, Buck, and in this case, I would concur that we, of course, Dan, cannot go against the Constitution. It's implied that that would happen, and this resolution that's before us is one that's been used by many of the other counties, so if we start to depart from what other counties have done, then it's going to start to send a mixed message to the state legislature. And as we all remember, we passed our own resolution in 2017 supporting fair maps as a county board. That didn't get anywhere, but the voice of the people is a lot louder. And so, just like has been done in several of the other counties, when the referendum occurs, our legislators cannot not listen. They have to listen, because then it's the will of the people. So all this is to present it to the voters, let them have their say. So I will be against the amendment, that's what this is about,
yep.
And then I'll be voting in favor of the referendum question.
Okay. Fernando, you want to talk? Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor to amend the resolution at this time, so we'll vote on it now. And that fails, so we'll go back to the original motion with the second on the floor. No further discussion on it. Supervisor.
This is, well, let me get to, when I was reading and researching this, I noted that on elections.wisconsin.gov, it mentioned that there is no mention in the Constitution or in any statute that we should, or there's no right given that we should have this advisory referendum question. So I question why we're even doing this. That's the first point. The second point is that there are a number of fallacies in this resolution, starting with the first paragraph. And I would say that most of the paragraphs contain errors and should be corrected before our consideration. I would move that the document be sent back to committee to be corrected.
Any other discussion? Supervisor Foster.
Yeah, I guess I would comment also in terms of the statement, whereas the current procedure stifles political participation, discourages collaboration and compromise and so forth. I mean, all those things are haven't really been established. So, again, I don't feel comfortable with the with the wording in the resolution. I do think that the wording for the resolution itself is very vague and is pretty ineffective in terms of what it's doing. So I would be voting against this.
Okay. Fernando.
Just for clarification, was my last motion denied then?
Was there a second?
Oh, was that a motion? I didn't catch
Yeah, I'm
the
sorry,
motion.
I put a motion that because of the
For
fallacies.
an
in the-
amendment again?
Let me state it again.
The motion is to refer it back to committee.
Because
Okay.
of the fallacies within even the first paragraph as well as the remainder of the body.
I need a second on that motion then to refer it back to committee. Wolf? Okay, Supervisor Foster. So we have a motion and a second to send it back to committee. Supervisor Peterson.
I guess this is my personal opinion, it's not my committee per se, but you blow all the smoke and politics away. All I see here is a chance for our voters to have a voice, and I'll never object to that, so I'm going to vote against returning this committee, and I will vote for the.
Is any other?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I would like to go through some of the fallacies that were overlooked by the committee when they sent it here. Going to the first paragraph, if you read that, it says, whereas the state constitution, the majority party, or whereas under the state constitution, the majority party of the legislators directed at its next session following the decennial federal census to redistrict legislative districts according to the number of inhabitants, etc. That is incorrect. Let me read for you from Article 4, Section 3, the legislature shall apportion and district anew the members of the Senate and Assembly according to the number of inhabitants. It does not say that the majority party. That needs to be removed. That's false. I would...
Well, yeah, what we have on the floor, though, is to send it back to committee. Motion
Right, I'm
and
just
second.
letting the
Yeah,
people know that...
That's fine.
I can go through, I don't want to waste everybody's time. I can
Yeah.
go through each paragraph and find major errors in this that are
Yeah.
embarrassing to this board.
Okay.
But I don't want to do that. I'd rather send it back to the committee so that they can fix it.
So we have Supervisor Hanson.
Is this working now? Okay. We send it back to committee, it's not going to get on the ballot. If it doesn't get on the ballot, it's a procedural victory for somebody, sort of a group of people who want desperately to maintain an effort to repress voters from getting to the poll and exercising their franchise. And that, right there, is everybody's, the elephant in the room, and I think we need to identify that. Let's give this to the people, let them vote, say what they want to say, and that's the very best work that we can do as representatives of the people. We already had a referendum on this. We voted to have fair maps, and that, like Roy said, went nowhere. Let's give the say to the people and do what we can to end voter repression. Thank you.
Supervisor Tatum.
Well, I would concur with Supervisor Hanson. I find this to be a common technique when we have a common sense resolution in front of us that voters support. We have a lot of public comment. I believe all of us have received many emails from people asking us to vote in favor of this referendum, and pulling apart the resolution I don't think serves our constituents best. I will be voting no against sending it back to committee, and I will be voting yes for putting this referendum on the ballot.
Okay. Yep, Supervisor Malik.
I've already said how I'm going to vote, but I resist the opportunity to impugn each other's motives. I don't like to see that kind of behavior. I don't think it's warranted in this case.
Oh, we have a motion on the floor and a second to send this back to committee. Yeah? You want to speak?
No, he just needs Andrew's second.
Oh, we don't have the second up there. Yeah, you got to put the second up there, Dan. There we go. Okay. So we have the motion and second on the floor send it back to committee. So at this time, we'll vote on this. And that fails, so we'll go back to the original motion and second on the resolution for the referendum. So we have a motion and second on the floor, and I think at this time we'll vote on that. Supervisor, go ahead.
I would like to at least to make a motion to fix then the errors that are. Pardon? Okay.
Yeah. So we'll have to vote on it this time.
Original motion,
Yep.
put it on the record.
We're voting on the original motion, second on the resolution to send it to referendum. There's 3 noes and the rest are yes, so that passes and gets moved on. Thank you. Now we're down to our last business item, which is a resolution to create RFP for refinancing of the state trust fund loans. And I need a motion. Supervisor Peterson, I need a second. Supervisor Osnes. Discussion on that.
This is a request coming from the Administration Committee. We have a couple of state trust fund loans at an interest rate of 3.25%. They're both callable. We feel we can refinance these state trust fund loans at a lower interest rate for an estimated savings in interest costs of $68,000. So what you will be doing is acting on a resolution to approve an RFP, which will go out to financial institutions that will be able to bid on the bond instruments that will refinance these 2 state trust fund loans.
Any discussion? Supervisor Coulter.
I just have a question. Is the 18.5 that's going to cost to refinance that before or after the 68,000 in savings?
It's the 68,000 is net.
Okay.
Net savings.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, we have a motion and second on the floor on the resolution to create an RFP for refinance of state trust fund loans. So we'll vote this time. And that's all yeses. Thank you. Request for future agenda items? Supervisor Motatum.
Well, I would like to see us address the issue that was brought up by one of our public comment speakers on
It's hard to hear.
on the recent Emerald Sky Dairy spill. It appears that this is a repeated event that happens, and I'd like us to look at the things that were brought up with their, I forget what it was, where they have to, notification, that they themselves are, there's no requirement for them, it sounds like, to notify the public, as well as minimal fines that don't seem to be effective in preventing further spills. So I guess I'd like to address that at a future meeting.
Okay. Supervisor Hanson.
That should go to community development and come back to the county board.
Okay. Any other agenda items? If you do have any more agenda items, just bring them forward to Pat or Cindy or myself, and they'll be put on the agenda, so. Okay. County Clerk's report.
Just a couple things on the On the elections webpage, under county supervisor candidate information, there's a listing of candidate filings. If you're interested, I also have the list here. We do have 9 non-candidacies filed, and approximately, as of today, about 10 with opposition, 10 offices, 10 seats, districts with opposition. So the filing deadline is today at 5 p.m., and that's all I have for that. I also have received some 2020 calendars. They are for county supervisors if you're interested. These are from WCA, and these are from Cedar Corporation. So please help yourself if you'd like some. And that's all I have.
That's it. Thank you for that report. Any announcements?
Moving that February date back a week?
We did, in the consent agenda. So, if there's nothing else, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.